Now, you lead us then rather conveniently to another point, which is everything is fast-paced, but it's not all about Twitter, is it, the IT department? Sometimes it's about Fortran. So how do we marry up the requirement to look ahead and keep pace with, well, it's estimated that 40% of IT budgets are actually spent on legacy systems. That means we need the skills to support those. How are we going to fit those two concepts together as things progress?
If I may, I'll
Yes.
come at this at an interesting angle, which is an analogy I've used often when I've been talking to younger people, as I lead a mentoring program in the City of London. And it's an analogy I use about cars, where back when I was a teenager, I literally did take apart a car and put it back together. I knew how an internal combustion engine worked. I was a bit of a geeky kid like that. Nowadays, I open the bonnet of my car and it's a sealed unit. It's not just a case of I'm not a mechanic, I don't know what to do, but I need a full-on dealer's computer, the correct plug to plug it into the engine management system and so on. It is, I cannot touch it, I can't make any changes to it. The point being with legacy systems, be it Fortran, be it even something that isn't legacy but still in active use but is believed by some to be old hat, things like C++, some of the older versions of Java which still need to be programmed because they're standalone, and many other languages besides. Each has its own value. After the Fukushima disaster in Japan, a series of security checks was undertaken at a number of UK and other nuclear plants on coasts around the world at the instructions of the International Atomic Energy Authority, to look at what would be required in the case of a Fukushima-style tsunami, these nuclear plants on coasts around the world. The point being, why I raise that as being relevant, is a lot of these nuclear power plants, certainly in Western Europe, have very old programming languages that are on standalone air-gapped systems that haven't been touched for decades. So if you want to change anything, you've got to know Fortran. And you've got to bring X, Mr. Y or Mrs. Z out of retirement to start reprogramming the stuff, because these skills do not exist. And unfortunately, it's not a simple engine that you can say, right, I'll program this in C++ and translate it into Fortran. Doesn't work. It just does not work like that.
Yes.
So from the point of view of some of the legacy systems as well as the legacy skills, again, coming back to the point you raised earlier, if people are looking for career options or things to beef up their CV or for anything like that, taking some of the courses, some freely available online, a lot of these things through the munificence of YouTube, and even the BCS gets involved in some of these courses to enable people to upskill themselves in some of these legacy applications, some of the legacy programming languages, all the way through to dealing with the nub of your question, legacy systems. I've worked with organisations which have acquired multiple companies over decades and left accounts wide open from the legacy acquisitions, and they've never been switched off. Back to the security argument, well, nobody actually thought, well, when we acquire this business, how do we turn that bit off and that bit on? So it's thinking these through at a very basic level.
Yes.
I think coming from an engineering environment, I don't think legacy systems are about to disappear anytime soon. So there is a need for technology to truly develop the sandbox type concept. I mean, many companies have said they've actually achieved it and not really got there, but I do believe that there's a huge area for industry as a whole for a sandbox type technology that could allow the legacy systems to work without the millennium bug issues and the latest one, Windows 2003 server going offline next year and those types of things, which cause you to do, in industry's eyes, unnecessary work just to keep those systems running. Because they achieve nothing more the day after you've done the upgrade than they were before you did the upgrade, except it's now secure. Yes. So some technology within the industry, IT industry, that could actually allow that to happen at a lower overhead, I think would be very, very welcome. And in terms of, as you say, a skill set for people going forward, then interpreting that sandbox and then still being able to do the Fortran and the other languages that are out there as well would be immensely powerful, because most of those guys that did that are now in the sort of what should we call sunset years of their career.
That's very tactful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, very good. Okay, well, I've had another interesting question in here. This is GPN01. He's written, cloud, big data, social media, data scientists. What other hypes do IT people need to be aware of, apart from BYOD and mobile? I don't want to put meaning on that, but it sounds to me like GPN01 is asking how an IT professional might avoid going into a cul-de-sac.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and I think actually that's probably the major role of whether you're an IT director or a CIO or anybody in a leadership position in IT, is sorting out the hype from reality.
Yeah.
And actually, it's very industry specific. It's very task specific, and you have to know your niche area that you can say, will this actually be usable for us? Perhaps in a way that it wasn't even intended to be used, or not. And you know, saying no to new ideas, new technologies is as important a question as to saying yes, I'm making a mistake.
Yes.
In fact, in many cases, it's more beneficial because you don't invest in it and waste your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's the age-old phrase of don't believe the hype. I think that the danger, as you say, if you turn your company off to innovation, if you say flatly refuse, let's not have any of that. Equally, a more valuable phrase would be check the hype before proceeding, look before you leap.
Yes.
And whether it's some of the phrases you raised there, I mean, there was one that you kept tripped off your tongue, which was BYOD, bring your own device, which 2-3 years ago was a huge deal. Everyone's very excited about the fact that from a tax perspective, employers could start writing off hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds by having employees pay for their laptops and their phones and so on. And in actual fact, as things have matured quite quickly in BYOD, a lot of organisations have found that whilst there might be a tax efficiency in having an employee produce their own, from a security point of view, from an ongoing maintenance and management point of view, and many other points of view, actually it makes sense. Let's just keep this in-house. And that raises the other issue for the millennials joining the workforce now, where they'll have IT, whiz-bang smartphones and the latest, greatest tablets. They'll come into the workplace and be dealing with a laptop or a PC that's 3, 4, 5 years out of date, maybe even running Windows XP, which we all know where that's going. The point that I make here in terms of all these hypes is be careful where you nail your colours as a young person in the industry, as a mature person in the industry. These things do have a shelf life, and it's being able to appreciate where that end date is going to be. We'd all love to be futurologists. We're not. We can't be. But equally, it's keeping your options open.
Yes, absolutely.
I think probably guilty as charged with regards to that question, and I think that's probably something as a profession we're not particularly brilliant at. Again, that's back to the communication layer. So yeah, a behaviour that we'd want to replicate of any professional is to make sure they're out and about, they're horizon scanning, they're understanding the impact of new technologies or not on their organisations, and that's incredibly important. I think as an interested profession, and sometimes that does lead to a slight mistrust, is that there are these peaks and troughs of the greatest thing you'll ever see ever, and all the hyperbole that goes with that, and then actually, no, we didn't mean that one, we mean this one, you know, and it is dangerous, I think, because I think it diminishes our credibility. Yeah. So I'll be very careful when I use data scientist as a phrase again in the future. But I think the behaviours I'm after is a valuable skill set.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to see a merger of the hype cycle and the big data analytics. I'm sure we've all seen the Gartner hype graph, where you've got the rapid ramp up of adoption, and then the drop off where it goes into, I think it's a trough of despair they now call it.
That's it.
And then there's the slow and steady, proper
finding an actual
introduction
use
and find real use and real value for, which is a much slower curve and goes on over time. But if you did big data analytics about who were the people on this front curve, is it actually IT cynicists, or is it business people who are a bit naive thinking they can gain something from nothing? And I think actually if you did that, you'd find there's a lot of people who don't do the background checks on the technology, who leap in thinking they can get real benefit early, and of those a very small percentage actually achieve it.
And perhaps the IT linguist, they would be viewed as a bit of a Job, though, wouldn't they? Be negative all the time, anything new coming out.
I turn that round, actually, Brian. I'd say the IT, so the business technology linguist is almost the saviour, if you want to put it that way, from the perspective of actually achieving some definition of hype to the business community, saying to the technologists, be aware that particular solution you're advocating there has these foibles and so on, and marrying those two together. So allowing the business people to see the benefits of a new technology, allowing the technologists free rein up to a certain point. Everyone needs their boundary. Equally, that business technology linguist, if that's the phrase we're using for this, which I can't think of anything better.
I mean, I stole it from someone else. So
but again, it's putting these things together to say, right, technologists, this is what the board is asking you to do. Board, this is what your technologists are able to deliver, and it's that middlewoman who's sitting there able to be the interface, the go-between between the business and the technology worlds.
Yes.
Yeah, so assessing the risk, basically.
Indeed.
Which is any risk management is worth doing.
Okay. Now, we've already had a bit of a debate about whether CIO and digital leader overlap, so take this question any way you like. But how should our CIOs stroke digital leaders equip themselves so they stay ahead of the game? Because they might be being looked to, mightn't they, by their IT professionals. Perhaps they'll even go to them for some advice or direction.
So I think one of the behaviours that's the same across all professions and is equivalent across all professions is this idea of continuous professional development. And often that people hear continuous professional development and see courses. Now, at the beginning of your career, it may well be courses, but actually, especially when you're sort of thought leadership level at CIO and digital leader, it's a blend of activity to do with thought leadership, and it might be speaking at conferences, attending networking, mentoring, shadowing, all sorts of. But that is it must be it is something that you give real attention and time to for the benefit of your organisation. And it's that behaviour, and I suppose we use membership as a proxy actually for understanding that behavioural set and what the take-up is. And I think that is something that you'll see across the, more mature professions like accountancy and law and medicine, for example. It's just a fundamental requirement is that you go out and you make sure that you are up to date with some of the trends, you understand the balance between, let's say, fashion and what is just a bubble as we've just been discussing, and what is real and what are the tangible benefits to the organisation. But it is a behaviour that is important and requires therefore that amount of attention to be put on it. And at the moment, I don't think we always understand that. There's always a million other things to do, and I realise that is difficult. But actually, that I think is a skill I've seen talking to some of CIOs across the country who really advocate that, and you can see the benefit that they bring to their organisations because they are always taking themselves out of the context that we're in right there and at the moment, and often they find great benefit. Someone in finance found huge synergies with actually problems that they were finding in the airline industry, and actually the approach that they took taught them a huge amount of how they might be successful in their own organisation. So manufactured serendipity is sometimes very important. I think that is CPD across the board, really, certainly when you're sort of a thought leadership type level.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add briefly to that, I obviously wholeheartedly support you there, Adam, in terms of the ongoing development of the CIO. I think there are two very important angles to a successful CIO, one of which is the external focus and being able to see bigger than their own ivory tower, shall we say, but equally it's the ability to mentor and understand those lower down in the food chain, so to speak. Certainly with the mentoring program I'm involved with through the Worshipful Company of IT, there is an awful lot of digital leaders of yesteryear who we're privileged to be able to have amongst our membership community that we rely on for mentoring younger members of the IT community. And they provide a perspective on, yes, I did these great things, equally I'm now listening to you, and every single mentor feeds back to me that they feel they've got more out of the relationship than their mentee. And that's a great piece of feedback. Equally, it underlines this point on the importance of a CIO or any leader. The fact it's around information is really neither here nor there, of being able to listen to others. And there are an awful lot of CIOs out there, and I shall name no names, who believe their own hype, who believe every word that comes out of their own mouth, and to the detriment of being able to listen to others.
Well, you can tell us afterwards off camera, that'll be fine. Thank you.
But I think also as well, and I agree with both of what you've both said there, that you have to make yourself available and listen to people internally in your organisation to feel what your business pressures are, where it thinks it's going, where it wants to go, because you need to marry those with the external inputs as well to see what opportunities you think you can broker in there. So listen, spending as much time internally talking to your peers as you are certainly to your own team and certainly to people externally.
Well, thank you. There's been some very interesting things come out there, gentlemen. I'd like to ask you one more question to finish off, and that is for an IT professional watching this now or when it's published as a full edited version later, is there a couple of sort of headline bullet points you would give them to just think about to make sure that when the IT team of the future fully develops, they're there front and centre? Adam.
What is either yourself, maybe it's your own business, or what is your organisation trying to achieve, and how do I exploit my skill set and my understanding to be able to achieve that end? Yeah. There's a few things you have to ask in there. What is the organisational attitude to risk, etc., etc. But that's essentially what we're trying to do. So always, I think to be successful, always turn everything that you do in terms of outcome.
Yeah.
It's an outcome and value-driven world. It's not being seen to be sat somewhere, and I think that's really what's going to drive future operations. How do I add value? Well, these are the outcomes that we're delivering. These are the things that we're changing, rather than sometimes I think I think that helps to guard against big IT projects. Well, okay, but what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve? And how best are we going to be able to do that? And how can I exploit what it is that I know and what I keep up to date to be able to achieve those ends? I think that's the skill set that won't go out of fashion.
Excellent.
I'm torn between several different things in my mind, one of which we mentioned as we were walking in this room about the fact that this is for gentlemen of a certain age, no females, no young people and so on. But let's park that one. I think arguably equally important is one of understanding business risk and around what we're dealing with most technology systems, which is information in one form or another. Could be data, could be knowledge, but let's call it information for the sake of argument. And that's understanding for anybody in the technology industry, anybody in IT, what the business risks are around what they're doing with this bit of information. It could be big data, it could be delivery of a different project or whatever. And I think that knowledge and understanding of risk from a business perspective is a skill set that's lost on an awful lot of people in the technology industry, of understanding where do I fit in this grand, in the big game. And that risk component is an easy way to articulate that, as I say, up to the board level or to a pure technologist.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Keith.
So I think in a fast-moving industry, which IT clearly is, that innovation is one of the key areas. But what I would say to anybody starting industry is keep innovating yourself. Keep renewing your skills, your technical skills and your soft skills. Keep allowing yourself new opportunities to find new pieces of information you didn't previously have. And I recall one of the very first management training schemes I went on to. And the guy there, we all sat in a room, all having our tea, ignoring each other on the first day, as you do. And when we got into the room, the guy said, "So why didn't you go and talk to that person over there?" Because he could have told you something. It could have been a load of rubbish. Or it could have been really extremely interesting and something you could have taken away and learnt from and developed on and built your career around. But because you didn't even broach the subject, you'll never know. And I would encourage everybody to just keep being inquisitive, keep reinventing themselves, spread their technical skills, certainly spread their soft skills and talk. That would be the best advice, really.
Excellent. Keith, Edward, Adam, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We really appreciate that. It's been some fascinating stuff coming out. To pick up one of Edward's previous points about women in IT, look out for a large campaign that BCS are undertaking shortly, which is in no way undermined by the makeup of our group today. So please look out for that. There will be more coming out over the coming couple of months on the BCS website about our Next Wave campaign on the main website, also on our Enterprise Hub. So please look out for that, and thank you very much for watching.